Welcome again to McAfee's Center Stage webinar series. My name is Justin Burgess and I will be your facilitator. This webinar will be recorded. If you prefer not to participate in the recorded session, please feel free to drop from the webinar now. A link to today's recorded presentation will be emailed to all participants. Our presenter today is Corey Rathborn. Corey is a member of the Data Protection Support Team who has been working in technical support at McAfee for over 6 years, specializing in supporting drive encryption and DLP. He is Security Plus and CEH certified and currently working towards a bachelor's degree in cybersecurity at Utica College. At this time, Corey's going to take over.
All right, thanks, Justin, and thanks everybody for joining today. As Justin indicated, this webinar is going to be about the new capture feature that we've introduced in DLP version 11.1. For those of you who have experience with NDLP 9.3, you know that this is a feature that we've had in the past, but that we've been looking to include in the newer versions of network DLP, and we've finally introduced it. For those that are new to network DLP, this will be all new information for you, but as we go through the presentation today, hopefully you'll find this information useful and beneficial to you. What we're going to cover today is it's going to be basically a high-level overview of how this feature works with DLP Prevent and DLP Monitor. As you can see on the agenda here, we're going to talk about what capture actually is, how to configure it from the EPO standpoint. We'll talk about datasets, which is basically narrowing down what data you're looking for. And then we'll cover two different scan types that we have, which is a forensic investigation and also role tuning. And we'll also talk about the results of the scans and also what you can do with those results. Okay, so what is capture? Basically, it's a feature that helps you find data that you've been missing. Or helps you alleviate false positives that you've been seeing. So improper configuration can either lead to data loss or it could lead to false positives within your DLP environment. Capture can help with this. It allows for storage of email, web, or network traffic that flows through your DLP Prevent and DLP Monitor devices. The capture data can be searched to identify a data loss event. And then you could also use role tuning to adjust DLP rules that you have configured if you're either seeing a false positive or if you're not capturing data in your roles that you expect to. So again, this will help you alleviate those types of issues. All right, so we'll start off with some basic EPO configuration to get capture working in your environments. So when you upgrade or check in the DLP 11.1 extension in your EPO policy manager, you'll notice under DLP appliance management that there is a new policy called DLP Capture Settings. This is a very simple policy that really only has two settings. The most important one in here is the Enable Capture setting. This is disabled by default, so it is very important if you want to use capture on your DLP Prevent or Monitor that this is turned on, otherwise capture will not actually work on your appliances. And in addition to the Enable Capture option, there is a data retention option in the same policy. You can see towards the bottom of the screenshot there, there's a delete captured items older than a number of days. That again is turned off. If that is turned off, the data that is captured and stored in the capture database is deleted based off of available disk space. So as the prevent nears being full disk capacity, data will be deleted based on the oldest data that's captured or stored. You can change this by specifying a specific number of days. So for example, the default values, they're 28, but you can modify that. Let's say you only want to keep 90 days worth of data based on your data retention policy. You can enable that and it'll only keep 90 days worth of data. Now, if let's say your storage fills to capacity before that 90 days is met, then it will drop back to the default action, which is to delete data based on available disk space. So moving on to datasets. A dataset is basically a way of narrowing down what type of data you're looking for. So rather than just looking for all the data that passes through your appliances, you're looking for specific parameters, specific things. So this way, if you have a specific email address that you're looking for, or some event or information that has gone through your appliances within the last 24 hours, the last month, something of that nature, that can help you narrow down the information that you're actually looking for. You can kind of think of these, if you're familiar with DLP, like definitions, because they can be used across multiple searches. So it's not a one-for-one, it's basically a one-for-many type of assignment. And again, they can be configured for multiple things, but the intended use is to narrow the scope of what information you're looking for. So here we have a screenshot of the configuration for a data set. As you can see on the left-hand side, there are numerous options. You can search based on specific appliances. So data that would pass through appliance A versus appliance B, you can search based off of that. Whether there was an incident triggered for that specific data, a time range, email criteria, an specific IP address, user information. So a number of things that you can search for here to help narrow down your search criteria. So in the example that we have here, we're looking for data based on a specific protocol that passed through. So in this case, SMTP, and the time range is any SMTP traffic that went through our appliances within the last week. There is a refresh button that is within the configuration here. This kind of gives you a generic overview of whether the parameters that you have are going to give you any results without actually having to run the scan. So the refresh button can be clicked, and we'll see, I think in the next slide, it'll actually show us some results here. Let me go ahead and go to that slide here. So as you can see here, the data set spanned 2 different appliances that we had in our environment, and approximately 7 capture events were captured based on that information. Now, of course, this is from our test environment here, which we don't really have live traffic flowing through it. In your environment, you may have a lot more information here, or a lot more events that would come up. But this is an example of just doing a quick evaluation of whether the configuration that you've set up will actually capture any relevant data. And additionally, this does not require an agent wake-up call on the appliances. When the refresh button is clicked, it simply sends out basically its own wake-up call to the appliance, and that information is sent back to EPO. Okay, so we're going to move on to our first scan type, which is a forensic investigation. A forensic investigation basically is just looking for any data that passed through your environment, through your DLP appliances. You will use a data set to help narrow that information down, but there are some additional options that can be used within the forensic investigation, and we'll cover those here in the next few slides. So within a forensic investigation, basically what you're doing is you're looking, you're kind of using this as a quick search, or you can think of it as a keyword search. As you can see under in the screenshot, under the condition tab, there is a search term area. And within the field there, you can type in a specific word or phrase that you want to look for. So this is very useful if you're looking for data that maybe you think may have leaked from your environments that may not be covered by a DLP rule. This will actually show that information for you and will help you configure your rules differently. Conditions, there are different conditions between searches. So conditions within the search, within the searches are considered and statements. No conditions provides results for everything within a data set. So basically, if we don't put anything in the condition tab, it solely relies on whatever criteria you've put in the data set definition. You can see towards the screen, top of the screenshot, there's a data set option. So when you click the ellipsis button over to the right of that field, that will come up with a list of the data sets that you've configured. I did not mention this in the previous slides, but there are actually 2 built-in data sets. One is for information that passed through your appliances within the last 24 hours, and the other is within the last month, I believe. So those are there by default. Again, those are just kind of there really as examples, but they can be used to just for testing or to see how it works. And those options are always there as far as creating your own custom data sets. You can narrow this down by specific end user. So an end user, that end user information would possibly be passed through your appliances. So we can identify that, and that's identified by the SID, the security ID of the user. We can also narrow this down by specific file name. So if there's maybe a classified document that you're looking for to see maybe if that's left your environment, you can put that specific file name here, and we should be able to see if that passed through any of your appliances. And again, going back to the search term again, we do have some default languages. By default, it's set to any language, but other languages that we of course support English, but we support French, German, Spanish, Japanese, and Chinese. So you may have noticed that there's also an exact match checkbox under a search term. So basically what that means is we're looking for exactly the exact phrase that we put in the search term. So if we put in the word jump and we have exact match selected, it is only going to find the word jump. It will not find jumped, jumping, or jumps. If we unselect that option, we will actually be able to find what are known as stem words. So a stem word being like past tense or plural version of a word of the actual root word that you put in there. So the jump, jumped, jumping, or jumps, we would be able to find if we unselect the exact match. So there's no right or wrong way to use this. It's solely dependent on what type of information you're looking for. But if you're looking for an exact term, that does need to be selected. So we can also use keywords and phrases here as well. So I give two different examples here of keywords and phrases. At the top here, we have two different keywords. So a keyword would be categorized as an individual word. So I have highway and 5 as two different keywords, and those can be set up as either an and or an or statement. So if we want to look for both or just one or the other, those can be set up that way. And this can also be used as an exact or inexact search term. Now, for phrases, a phrase would be considered multiple words within one text field. So I have the example there of Highway 5, and the second search term is Texas. So Highway 5 would be considered a phrase because it's two words within the same text field. These are implicitly and, so what that means is both of those words have to exist in order for this keyword to actually trigger, and they must be consecutive. So that means that the two words have to be next to each other. They can't be separated by two different words or a comma or something like that. They have to be consecutive. You can have multiple phrases, though, that are connected by and or statements. So that and or button still works as you think it would. And in terms of phrases, this has to be an exact match only. We cannot do an exact match with this. All right, so we're going to move on to results here. So let's say, for example, you've run your forensic scan, and we actually got some results. So we'll take a look at what information that actually provides us here. In terms of search criteria, there's different settings that we have in terms of what information will actually be provided to you. There is a max results to report setting. By default, that is set to 100. And there is a checkbox there to actually stop the search if the max results parameter is reached. There are 3 different options here, even though they're not displayed here. You can bump this up to 1,000 or 10,000 results. Those are the 3 options in the drop-down box. And we can also store the original file as evidence. So just like with just a normal DLP incident, how you would gather evidence, we can do the same thing here. we'll take a look at some of the results events that we get in, and you'll see that they look very similar to what we see in the DLP Incident Manager. Again, this works exactly the same. We get basically a copy of the file stored within the evidence share, and it can be downloaded and reviewed and analyzed. So in DLP Capture, of course, you've got 4 different tabs, and we're going to take a look through the search list tab. And this is what you'll see here is not just your forensic scan that you've set up, but also if you create a role tuning scan, which we'll cover later, you'll see this here as well. It has a couple of different columns that can provide you some information regarding your scans. Probably one that you'll look at pretty frequently is the status column. That'll give you information about what's going on with the scan, whether it's in starting mode, if it's in progress, if it's been canceled, or if it actually finished. The results column will actually show you whether you actually got any results from your scan. And you can actually click on the numeric value. It's a link, and it will actually give you a list of the results for you to review. Not pictured here, but it does exist in the columns, is the appliances and start time columns. So basically that tells you what appliances are available to scan. And if you click on, I believe you can click on the appliances and it'll actually give you some more information about those. We'll cover that here in a minute. And then the start time, that just gives you the timestamp of when the scan started. You can export a summary of the scan as well. Those get exported, they get bundled into a zip package, and there's 2 text files. There's a results text file, which contains the results of the scan, and then there's a summary text file, which is basically a summary of the scan itself. Those can be opened up in Excel as a comma-separated value file. The information that's in those text files will actually parse into the columns in Excel nicely. So you can convert that to an Excel file if needed. As I said in the last slide, under the appliances column, there is a hyperlink that you can click on that will actually show you your DLP appliances and give you some information. So one of the columns that's available to you is the appliance status column. And as you can see in the screenshot there, I've got 2 appliances and they both have a healthy status. You'll also see that the healthy status is actually a link. If you click on that, that will actually take you to the appliance management console in EPO, which displays further detailed information regarding the health and status of your appliances. So it's just another way to get to the appliance management console for your appliances. You can see whether capture is actually enabled on the appliances. And again, that goes back to the capture policy that we talked about earlier. Just that simple checkbox is all you need. But again, it is disabled by default, so it's easy to miss. So this will actually tell you whether it's enabled on the appliance or not. And you can see on mine, I've got it enabled on both. Search status, so that'll give you a status of your current search scans that you're running, if you are running any, or the last known status. So in my case, one of mine reached a max result, and you can see all the way over to the right-hand side, there is a results column. I did reach that 100 results parameter that we had in our search configuration. So that's why I got that max result reached. And we can also see in the other appliance that the scan succeeded. And you have other options there. You can tell whether it failed or if it's in the starting state or what have you. So there's other messages that you may see there. And of course, you have your search start time, which is basically just a timestamp of when the most recent scan took place. Okay, and so looking at search results, there's actually 2 different ways that you can access this information, both under the DLP Capture console. There's a search results tab that you can go to that will actually show your search results. Or in the search list, there's a results column which gives you a numeric value representing the number of results that you got from your scan. If you click on that, that will bring you to the search results specifically for that scan. So we'll actually filter based off of that scan configuration. If you just go to the search results, that should give you all of the results, but you can narrow that down based on the search list. So if you look at the search drop-down menu on the left-hand side, when you click that, you'll see all of the different search scans that you have configured. So you can narrow it down that way rather than just looking at all of the information all at once. This looks, for those of you that are familiar with DLP, this looks exactly like the DLP Incident Manager, and it's really no different. There's maybe just a little bit less information in some of these just because we don't actually have rules reacting to content, we're just searching for data. But it's set up exactly the same and works exactly the same as the DLP Incident Manager. So this is a view of an actual result that we got, and again, this should look very familiar to most of you. It's set up exactly just like a DLP incident. It does have a results ID, just like an incident would have an incident ID. Gives you information about when the result was found with the timestamp, result type. In this case, this was email protection. What appliance this was found on, and the product. So this was DLP prevent. And since this was an email protection result, we can see on the right-hand side under additional information, the sender email address, the recipient, and different networking information as far as IP address. At the bottom, we do have an evidence tab, which is the email that I sent to generate this. And again, this works exactly the same as DLP, the DLP Incident Manager. If you click on that link, you'll be able to open up a copy of the file and save it for analysis later on. Should be noted too that with a forensic search, you're only going to have the evidence tab, but if you do a rule tuning search, you'll actually have two tabs on the bottom. You'll have an evidence and a classifications tab, because as we'll see once we get to rule tuning, you're actually using classifications there as well. And so we're going to move on to rule tuning here. So rule tuning is actually a really great feature that we have in Capture. This allows you to do some testing with your DLP rules before putting them into production, or even testing some rules that you've already put into production, but you're having some issues with. Maybe you're getting some false positives or even false negatives. It allows you to do some tuning without affecting your production environments. So we'll take a look at that here. So with rule tuning, we offer three different rule tuning searches. We can do this with email, web, and network communication protection. It uses the same search criteria as the forensic scan. So the same data set that we have, a data set configuration that we created for the forensic investigation, we can also use that here. So no difference there. And as you can see here in the screenshot, same basic setup here as well. You have the max results to report. So again, those options are the same. You have the option of 100, 1,000, 10,000, and you can also store the original files as evidence if needed. The big difference here between forensic scan and rule tuning is you actually have kind of a pseudo rule that you can set up within the rule tuning search scan. So again, those of you who have worked with DLP for a while, this should look very familiar. This is an email protection rule that we're looking at here within Capture. It's set up exactly the same as the email protection rule within the DLP policy manager, with the exception that we don't have a reactions tab, because again, we're not blocking, we're not doing any type of reaction. We're simply searching for specific content. So we have the ability to search based off of certain email elements, certain classifications that we may have configured, sender, recipients, the email envelope. So really any of the options that you would have in your email protection rule, you're going to have exactly the same options here. We also have an exceptions tab, which we'll talk about in a bit. Actually, I think I'll be demoing that as well, and that can help you kind of with false positives as well. And again, this is the rule tuning configuration for web protection. Again, should look very familiar. Same setup as the actual rule itself, minus the reaction tab. You have the option for classifications and specific URLs and what type of data you're uploading, whether it's a file or any just all data uploads. And same thing with network communication protection. Again, same configuration as the rule in the um, DLP policy manager. Couple differences you'll notice here, other than the reaction tab, is there's no toggle between NDLP, network DLP, and DLP endpoints. That's simply because DLP endpoints doesn't apply here. This is solely network DLP that this is working on. One limitation here, this only works with DLP monitor. It will not work on a DLP prevent. If you do try to run this on a DLP prevent, it will finish immediately with a rule type not applicable error message. Okay, and to assist with rule tuning, we do have a definitions tab with a few parameters here that you can configure. Definitions are pretty. A lot of these should look familiar, and they're pretty straightforward, I think. But we have the ability to create definitions for an email address list, end user group, network address, which is an IP address, of course, and a URL list. So all of these would get tied into those three different rule tuning rule configurations that we just covered. So that's where these would get pulled from. Okay, so we're going to cover some workflows here, and basically this is things that you can do with the results once they've been attained. Like what can you do with the information that comes back from your search scans? So a couple things you can do from the search results. If you actually go into a search results under the actions menu, you can actually create an incident off of this. So if it's, let's say, for example, you have some data that was sent through your appliances that maybe a rule should have caught but didn't catch because it was not configured correctly or some other issue was going on. But it needs to be investigated because it was top secret information or something like that. You can create an incident from the search results, and that can, of course, be investigated from that point on. You can also add the search results to a new case or an existing case. If you do that, there is a corresponding incident that is automatically created. So if you go to case management and do one or the other, there's going to be a corresponding incident that'll immediately be created. If you do create an incident, there is a link that is added to the result itself. So if you go back into that search result, you can simply click the link. It'll actually have the incident ID number. And when you click that link, that takes you directly to the incident that was created. So when you create an incident, if there's not a rule that's you're actually an existing rule that you're tuning, the rule name will automatically be generated. It doesn't actually create the rule in your DLP policy manager. It's basically pointing to a rule tuning name that you've created within your DLP capture configuration. So that way, you know, when you look at the incident, if somebody goes into your DLP incident manager and sees the incident, they know that this was generated from capture. It's not generated from an actual rule that you have in your DLP policy manager. And again, all of the information that would be in the results just gets transferred over to the incident as well. And like I said, there is a link that is created within the search results that directly links to the incident that's created. So converting a search result, we have the ability to actually convert some of our search results to rules. We can actually save these capture results as well. So that way, if so, when you run your capture search a second time, the capture data is actually overwritten. So every time you run the same search, the data is overwritten. But if you need to save the search results, you can actually do that. We have the ability to do that within the actions menu. So if you select the search results, you can actually save that information, and that way it doesn't get overwritten. And we, like I said previously, we have the ability to convert a rule as well. And this is actually very useful, I believe. So if you're doing some rule tuning and you actually create a configuration that does capture the data that you're looking for, you have the ability to convert your rule tuning search to an actual rule, which is very convenient. You can modify an existing rule, or you can create a brand new rule from the rule tuning. And again, this only applies to rule tuning. It does not work with forensic investigation, because again, that forensic investigation doesn't use any of the rule configurations. That's simply looking for keywords and search terms. And so when you convert a rule tuning search over to an actual rule, you have a couple of options that come up. You can override an existing rule, or you can create a brand new. And when you create a brand new one, you can either select an existing rule set for it to be added to, or at the bottom there is a field to create a brand new rule set for it to be added to as well. So basically all of the options that you would have when you're in your DLP policy manager, when creating a new rule, you would have here. You're just basically converting your rule tuning rule over to an actual rule that you're going to use in your DLP environment. Okay, so that's the end of our slides here. I am going to actually demo this now. So bear with me 1 second here. I'm going to switch over to my lab system here. Let me sign into my EPO server. Okay. So get to DLP Capture. Of course, it's located under data protection, just like all of the other DLP options are. So I'm going to go ahead and go in there. And just for the sake of time here, what I've done is I've created a rule tuning scan and a forensic scan, but I'll kind of cover how those are created. Let's take a look at the forensic scan here first. So I'm going to open that one up. This one is called From Query. And again, like we saw on the slides, this is using a data set. We'll actually take a step back here and take a look at the data sets in a minute here. The max results, I've got that set to the default of 100. I'm going to store the original file. And I'm not doing anything fancy here. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm just looking for the phrase top secrets. And I'm doing this as an exact match because I don't want to just trigger on the word top or secrets. I want to do the entire phrase top secrets. So let me back out of this here. I'm going to go over to my data sets, which I've got, which I'm using in that forensic scan, which is also named From Query. Now I'm doing this is very simple. Really, I'm just looking for anything that comes from this email address, right? Again, you can get a lot fancier with this if you want to narrow down the criteria. But just for the sake of the example, I'm going to keep this pretty simple here. So I'm going to keep this as just my email address here. Okay, so let's go back to the search list here. And what I'm going to do then is I'm going to send an email with the word top secret in it. And we should see that come up in our scan results. We'll call this classified information. Get rid of my typo there. There we go. Okay. And top secrets, Cool. So of course there would be more information in a real email, right? But for the sake of an example here, I'm just going to type in the word top secrets. All right, we're going to go ahead and send that off. And we'll flip back to our search list here. Now, I have run this before, which is why you see there's 2 scan results here. I'm going to run it again. And as you saw in that pop-up message there, it did let me know that it was going to erase the previous results, which is expected. And you can see the status now has changed from finished to starting. And again, there's no need to go back to my system tree and wake up the agent on my appliances. This is EPOs reaching out to the appliances, and there's really nothing for me to do for that scan to be reached. And I'm going to refresh it here. Okay, so in progress. We see we've already got 3 results here. Now, again, this is a test environment. We don't have live traffic running through this, so this is going to go pretty quick. I would expect in a normal environment that has live traffic flowing through it, the scan's going to take a little bit longer just because there's more information that's going to be stored on the appliance that it needs to search through. Refresh it again here and finished. Okay, so we got 3 results. We had 2 previously, so let's open it up and see what we have here. Okay, well, today's January 16th, so that looks like that's probably the email I just sent. So let's open that up and take a look. And yep, okay, there we go. So classified information, captured keyword search top secret, match count 1, and that's the sender. That's me right there. That's where I sent it. So perfect, cool. We got it. But we have all of these previous emails here, right? So I don't care about those. I only want what we have from today. So I could go back to my data sets and modify it a bit. Let's see here, time range is actually what I want. So we could say last 24 hours, right? So that should eliminate the other 2 emails that we saw in our scan. Let's go ahead and run that again. It should come up with a result of 1 instead of 3. All right, so we see it starting. There we go. There we go. All right, so if we click on our results, well, we got a different one here. So this is from yesterday. That's interesting. What did we do wrong here? Let's take a look. Should have picked that up. Let's try a between here. So valid time range. That's because it's in the future, right? So let's go back to this should do it. Okay. We'll give this one more shot here. This should hopefully do it. That's interesting. Okay, so I'm not sure why that's not showing up. It should have caught. We'll take that out here and let's run it again. I have a feeling it has something to do with the timestamp. That should have caught that though, I believe. Okay, there we go. Let's take a look. Okay, so I think I see what happened here. Okay, yeah. So the timestamp I had was off, so that's why I didn't capture it. I believe I was looking at UTC, so that's why it didn't show up um, in the modified scan. But if I had that correctly, this would have shown up. And again, you'd be looking at the last 24 hours. So we're kind of limited on time here. What we'll do is just take a quick look at rule tuning, and then we'll open it up to Q&A here. So this particular rule tuning configuration here, this is looking for email. The lab environment that I have is only set up for email, so that's what I have to demonstrate here. But basically, what I'm doing here is I'm looking for any email that is sent with this classification. Now, this classification, you can't see what's in here, but if we were to go to DLP classifications, we would see that it's looking for credit card information, and it's looking for credit card information within a Word document. Okay.
All right, guys. Once again, links to today's recorded session will be emailed to all participants. Thank you guys so much for joining today's webinar. And this here, we'll go ahead and conclude today's webinar. Thank you guys again for joining.